Spring training is officially in full force, and the MLB regular season is just a mere couple of weeks away. So, we are going to talk about some stuff that has happened. It's been a while since we've seen an episode of Hitting Home, and we have a lot to break down. So, do me a favor, kick back, relax, because the second ever episode of Hitting Home starts right now. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second ever episode of Hitting Home, only here on 609 Sports Talk, live over on Facebook and on YouTube. This is the show where we break down all the latest stuff to talk about around Major League Baseball. And of course, I am your host, leading off, Sam Nelson. So, it's been a while since we've had a Hitting Home episode. Not going to lie, it's been a minute. The first episode we did, we were during the week of the winter meetings. Lots of stuff was going on. Juan Soto went to the Mets. Max Fried went over to the Yankees. We got a lot of big moves that happened during that week. But then the offseason kind of took a tamper, and some moves were made the week after that. But it took a while for the offseason to really get going. I mean, Major League Baseball's offseason, it takes some time now, especially with the way certain agents, we know who I'm talking about, and his clients like to try to work their markets, and 90% of the time, it ends up blowing up in their faces. But that's another story for another day. So I figured it was a good time to bring up a Hitting Home episode. MLB opening day is only a few weeks away. There will be a Hitting Home episode the week of opening day. I got a fun episode planned for that. But for today, I figured it'd be nice to talk about some other stuff going around baseball. We're going to do some off-season winners and losers at the end of the show. We're going to talk about the Dodgers in a little bit and their ridiculously loaded pitching staff. But now that the dust has settled and spring training has officially started, I mean, we're about 2 weeks into the spring training. We got a couple more weeks till we head up back to our town to get ready for the regular season. But since all the off-season dust has finally settled, all the big-name free agents have signed. I think the last one to sign was just Alex Bregman signing with the Red Sox, 2 weeks ago, if that? So I thought it'd be a good time to bring up Hitting Home now and talk about some stuff that we haven't had a chance to talk about because it's been so long. So the first topic that I want to talk about, we're going to talk some New York teams. We're going to talk about the Mets, and we're going to talk about the Yankees. Now, of course, everyone knows we were in drama-filled land in the offseason with both teams. Juan Soto, of course, signed the largest contract in, I think, the history of baseball, or maybe the history of sports, signing that 15-year, $760 million deal with the Mets, ultimately leaving the Bronx, heading over to Queens, making the Mets easily one of the favored teams in the National League, and leaving the Yankees with a very big hole in their outfield and in their lineup. Now, as the offseason went on, as we know, Juan Soto, he was in place. The Mets then signed Clay Holmes to be a starter. They brought back Sean Manaea. They went and brought back Pete Alonso, even though that felt like it took 20 years off of all of our lives. And ultimately, over on the other side with the Yankees, they got to work, quite frankly, pretty quickly after the fact that they knew Juan Soto was going to Queens. They went out and signed Max Fried. They went out and traded for Devin Williams. They went out and got Cody Bellinger. And then they went out and they got Paul Goldschmidt. So both teams were very active this offseason, not just Juan Soto. It wasn't just about Juan Soto. The Yankees clearly had a plan B. They executed it. The Mets had a plan A, and they executed it. And now we look at both teams. And I think the question I want to start the show for everybody is, who is currently the better team coming out of this offseason? Is it the Yankees or is it the New York Mets? Which New York team do you guys think is better right this second? And now we can look at this a few ways. So, of course, Juan Soto, yes, Juan Soto's clearly the cream of the crop. He was the top tier free agent throughout this entire offseason. It was going to be hit. He's going to be the guy that says, oh, that makes the Mets the better offseason and the better team. However, I will say this. The Mets have a very good top of their lineup. I don't think it's unfair to disagree with that, saying that if you look at how many teams have a lineup of Lindor, Soto, Vientos, Alonso, I don't think there's anybody especially, maybe the only team in the National League that can combat that is the Dodgers, with Shohei, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez. They are probably the only team that can combat that top four. The other teams, the Brewers don't have that. The Phillies may. The Phillies could be somewhat of a conversation piece. Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos. You can make the case, or however the Phillies are going to put their top four. We're going to talk to the Phillies later on in the show too. But to me, I feel like the Mets won the battle. The first battle was getting Juan Soto. So I want to say that is the Mets definitely, they won their first one. They won the big one, right? They won the big fish. Congratulations to them. I just don't know if the one thing I would say about the Mets, they concern me with their pitching. I like that Mets lineup. I think it is easily loaded at the top. I will say, though, I don't know if the Mets lineup is as loaded at the bottom that you may want. The Mets are kind of lacking a little bit in that regard, in my personal opinion. I know the top four is great. Juan Soto is a stud. We know that. Mark Vientos, I think, is going to be absolutely. I think Mark Vientos is just being underrated as a whole. So I think there's definitely things that the Mets have done outside of Soto that have worked. I mean, getting Pete Alonso back was easily the biggest thing they had to do. Because if they didn't do that, then you were kind of looking at, outside, who's protecting Juan Soto. And that is another thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about, and that is the fact that Juan Soto, not only does he get protection from Aaron Judge last year, he needed somebody to protect him this year. And looking into it now, you're definitely looking at a guy that needs to have somebody protecting him. I mean, I don't think that's unfair at all to say. Juan Soto is better when he has somebody to protect him. And it's no knock on Juan Soto. This is coming from a Phillies fan. I'm not knocking Juan Soto. All I'm saying is that I don't think he impacts the team without a really good protection behind him. And he saw a lot more pitches to hit this year with when he had Pete Alonso, with Aaron Judge hitting behind him. So I think the Mets won the battle. They got the big prize. But the biggest concerns with the Mets right now, if we look at this, they don't have a great starting rotation. They don't have the guys they had last year. They have Paul Blackburn. Okay, he was a trade acquisition last year. Clay Holmes is going to be a starter. I'm not sure how much that's going to work out. Sean Manaea was brought back. He's out right now with an oblique. Frankie Montas is out right now with a lat injury. David Peterson, on the other hand, actually pitched pretty well for the Mets last season, so he will be a definite help. But they're kind of weak in that starting pitching department right now. And now, could they bring somebody else in before the season? It's highly unlikely to get somebody ramped up this late into the spring. But look, their lineup is still damn good. Pete Alonso is going to be your cleanup hitter. Francisco Lindor, he'll most certainly still be your leadoff hitter, dating back to what he did last year. Juan Soto, is there. He'll probably hit. He may hit second. He may hit third. I'm not sure where they're going to plug him at. And excuse me, they have Mark Vientos. So those are your top four. Now, outside of that, I don't really know what else the Mets lineup is outside of that top four. I mean, they brought back Jesse Winker. He clearly had a very nice little role in the Mets, so most likely be their DH. I mean, he only hit 243 for the Mets in the 44 games that he played last year, but he had a big impact on the clubhouse. That's why they brought him back. They brought over Jose Siri to give them some outfield depth. He will clearly be a defensive outfielder. He'll play some center field. Brandon Nimmo's another guy. He's good. He's solid, but I mean, he hit 224 last year. I think Brandon Nimmo is basically the wild card from having a five-man deep lineup instead of just having four. But then outside of that, I mean, Starling Marte is getting older by the second. He hasn't played 100 games over the last 2 years. He only played 94 games last year. He's now currently 36 years old. He's not getting any younger. And Jeff McNeil, another guy, he's been banged up. He played 129 games last year. He missed some time towards the end of the year. You're hoping for a bounce back year from him. The Mets I think their lineup is loaded. I don't think there's any denying that whatsoever. I believe the Mets lineup is going to be just fine with those first four, maybe five. You know what Lindor is going to give you. You know exactly what Soto is going to give you. You know what Pete Alonso can do even if Pete Alonso. Now, look, let's just dive into this whole Scott Boras thing with Pete Alonso. We can all just sit here now and admit Pete Alonso overplayed his market. I understand what Pete Alonso was trying to do. I get what Scott Boras was trying to do. Pete Alonso is not Juan Soto. Pete Alonso is not Aaron Judge. Pete Alonso is not Bryce Harper. Pete Alonso is not Mookie Betts or Shohei Ohtani. Pete Alonso is going to do one thing very well, and that is hit the ball out of the ballpark. He's going to hit 35 to 40 home runs this year, and he is going to probably strike out almost 175 times. That is what he's going to give you. And he's going to hit 240 to 250. That's what he's going to give you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because regardless, if you make a mistake to Pete Alonso, he's going to make you pay for it. There's no disagreeing with that. But all that offseason stuff, and you took a 1-year deal with technically a 2-year deal with an opt-out. So you took a 1-year deal to come back to the Mets. You overplayed your market. That's fine. But don't get me wrong. The Mets are way better with Pete Alonso in their lineup than they are with Pete Alonso out of their lineup. There's no I actually thought the Mets were worse off getting Juan Soto and if they lost Pete Alonso because I think he is more than just the power of that team. I think he's the heart and soul of that team. It's a very important piece to have, and excuse me, the Mets needed to bring him back, and they did. Now they didn't bring him back long term. They're probably going to have to do this whole episode again after this season, but you know what Lindor is going to give you. You know what Alonso is going to give you. You know what Juan Soto is going to give you. The big catalyst in this whole thing is Mark Vientos. And Mark Vientos last year was absolutely tremendous for the Mets. I mean, they were struggling to find a long-term answer at third base. It feels like the Mets have not had a long-term third base option since David Wright. And David Wright, when I first started to become a really diehard baseball fan, my top two favorite players to watch on a nightly basis, Chase Utley, David Wright. Those are the two guys that I put my TV on for when I was growing up. The Mets have not had a long-term third baseman answer since David Wright. And we thought that Brett Beatty was going to be that, but Brett Beatty has struggled to really get his feet off the ground in Major League Baseball so far to start his career. As a matter of fact, it sounded like he wasn't going to be on the Mets roster coming up. But Mark Vientos last year, Vientos was turning into a superstar against the Phillies in the playoffs. I mean, in just 111 games last year, Vientos hit 27 home runs, drove in 71, 22 doubles, hit 260, had a 320 OBP. He was sensational for the Mets last year. And he is the catalyst here because I believe with how the Mets may orchestrate that lineup, Soto may be hitting 2 for some games. I'm not sure if he'll hit 2 a lot. He may be their 3-hole hitter. But Lindor and Soto, and then Alonso's your cleanup hitter. So we're basically looking at Vientos potentially being the 3-hole hitter. That is going to be an important spot in terms of the Mets lineup because he's going to be protected by Pete Alonso, so he will have pitches to hit, but also he's providing the protection for Juan Soto. And excuse me, I just hit my mic with my hand, so that probably screwed me up for a sec there, but that's the importance of Mark Vientos to this Mets team. I don't care about the other three. I know what those three are going to give me. I know what Pete Alonso is. I know what Juan Soto is, and I know what Francisco Lindor is. But Mark Vientos is the biggest wild card because he's only had that 1 year where he played a full season so far. And he's still young. He's only, 24, 25? He's still a kid. So if you look at the Mets, the biggest thing for them this year is what do you get out of Mark Vientos? Because if you get what you had last year, but it's an improvement, oh my God, they may have a superstar on their hands, and I'm not talking about Juan Soto. Now, the other thing that helps the Mets is that Juan Soto is only 25, 26 years old. I mean, I feel like Juan Soto's been 24 years old since 2015, and he wasn't even in the big leagues yet. I feel like Juan Soto's been the same age since he got to Major League Baseball. I mean, it's crazy to think that this guy is going on his 4th team at age 26. In baseball, that's unheard of. But if the Mets get the Mark Vientos we saw just in October of last year, they are going to be dangerous. Now, the only issue I do have with the Mets, I don't know how good their pitching staff is. And the reason I say that is because they had innings eaters last year. They had 4 to 5 guys that could give you 6 innings and give you quality starts. Jose Quintana, they lost Quintana. He's with the Brewers now. Luis Severino, he's gone on to the A's. Now, they were able to bring back Sean Manaea, yes. But I do not know if the Mets rotation is strong enough as currently constructed. Like I said, they have Paul Blackburn. He's going to be in a conversation for a rotation spot. He was not great with the Mets in the 5 games he started last year before getting hurt again. ERA over 5. Maybe the Mets can fix them. I mean, they did pretty good with a bunch of those journeymen last year. I honestly thought they had a really, really solid chance with those guys. I mean, I don't know where else you go for starting pitching at this point of spring training, but currently still on their roster. I mean, Clay Holmes, it looks like he's going to be in the starting rotation. And so far, he's had 2 starts in spring training. He's looked pretty good. 3 innings in the first one. No hits, no runs, no walks, 3 strikeouts. And then in his second one, he went 3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Now, that's a promising sign, but how's he going to hold up? Is he going to be able to pitch 150 innings this year and into October? I don't know. I've never been a big fan of teams that do that. I don't like teams that turn relievers into starters. If you need a starting pitcher, go find a starting pitcher. I don't like converting elite relievers into starters. I've hated it since the Texas Rangers did it with Neftali Feliz years ago, and it ruined his career. And Clay Holmes, he was a good reliever. I wouldn't say he was a great reliever for the Yankees, but I don't like turning these guys into starters. Now, I could be completely wrong. I just don't prefer to do stuff like that. I prefer a traditional starting pitcher. I'm a little more older school of a baseball fan, so I apologize in advance. But then if you go down the list, again, Sean Manaea, they were able to bring him back. So he's most likely going to have to start the year on the IL with that oblique injury. But, I mean, if you're just looking at last year, Manaea was sensational for the Mets. He was 12-6, ERA 3.4. When he got to that little sidearm delivery that he started doing, he just became sensational. Now, they do have some other guys that you have to look at. I mean, Taylor McGill last year, he was in their rotation. He'll probably he had an ERA over 4. He'll probably be in the rotation to start the year because of Manaea's injury. Frankie Montas is another guy that they signed in the offseason from Cincinnati. Well, he was with the Reds and the Brewers. He started 30 games. He's already out. He's been out since the beginning of spring training with a lat injury. David Peterson, he started 21 games for the Mets last year. He was 10-3. So he'll probably get another run in the rotation. But, I mean, hopefully you're hoping that Kodai Senga is healthy. I mean, he only had the 1 game started last year, and he really didn't have the stamina in the postseason. So you're hoping that he comes back healthy, but I just feel like the Mets starting rotation is not as good right now. I mean, it's banged up with Montaz and Manaya. I mean, Senga's probably healthy as of right now, but I mean, Senga's probably opening day starter. Who's pitching number two? Is it Holmes, I guess? Maybe Peterson because he had a really strong year last year. I don't know. I just don't. And their bullpen, I mean, it's not the strongest bullpen either. So, like, don't get me wrong. The Mets had a good offseason getting Juan Soto, and that's fine. I'm not knocking it, but I, I mean, they've got some decent relief pitchers. I mean, Reed Garrett was really good for them last year. I mean, guy had an ERA of 3.7. He throws hard. He has 83 strikeouts. They still have Edwin Diaz, who, I mean, he's not, I don't think he's the Edwin Diaz that we're all used to anymore, but he's still very effective. So I'm sure that you'll see something from him this year. So they signed AJ Minter. I mean, I don't know how much Minter has left in the tank. They brought back Ryan Stanek, who they got last year. He was good for them down the road. But again, I mean, in 17 games, his ERA, he was over 6. So, like, these guys had the Mets, the biggest thing with the Mets last year in the postseason, the strength was to hide the bullpen because of good starting pitching, and hopefully your bats gave you enough to where the bullpen really couldn't mess it up. I don't know if the Mets have that. Now, they have the bats. They're going to hit. And if anybody comes on and tells you the Mets aren't going to hit, you're out of your mind. I don't care what I just said about the bottom half of their order is a little concerning, probably from 6 down. I would be a little concerned. I mean, I guess it would be Marte, Alvarez, I guess whoever else is that, and McNeil. I mean, and whoever your center and Winker and them. Like, I guess whoever is in the bottom half's the concern. But 1 through 5, the only really concern you're about is what do you get from Brandon Nimmo at this point. The other 4, I'm sold on. Lindor should have been the National League MVP last year. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Juan Soto is Juan Soto. Vientos, I don't see how Mark Vientos is going to fail if he's hitting between Juan Soto or Pete Alonso. And even if he's batting second and Soto hits third, I don't see how you're going to screw that up either if you have Juan Soto hitting behind you. Vientos is going to get pitches to hit this year, so I don't see how that's going to screw anything up for the Mets. And then you have Soto and Alonso. So I think it's mostly just the bottom half of their order that concerns me because of the age of Marte. What does Jesse Winker really give you now? Is Alvarez going to be able to hit for a little bit better of a batting average? I mean, he's not Pop. We know that. But that's the issues I have with the Mets. I want Soto instantly makes you a contender. It puts you up there. You're going to go at the Dodgers, but do you have the pitching to hang with the Dodgers? And I, as of right now, don't think the Mets even have. I don't even know if the Mets don't even have the best pitching in their division. I still personally, in my personal opinion, I still think the best pitching in their division could still be the Phillies. The Braves, they haven't really done much to improve their pitching. Spencer Strider is going to miss the beginning of the season, if not most of the season. Max Fried left in free agency. The Phillies still have a really good starting rotation of Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, and Sanchez. And, not to mention, they went and got Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins. So, but I'll get to the Phillies a little bit later on in the show. So, but I think the Mets are going to hit. I think they'll look good. I'm sure some of their pitching will be fine early in the season, but when you're getting to June, July, August, is it going to hold up? Is Clay Holmes going to be able, like I said, is Clay Holmes going to be able to throw 150 innings and go into the postseason? Is McGill and Peterson going to be able to throw 130 plus innings? You got to ask yourself at the end of the day. I'm not knocking the Mets. Like I said, dude, you can't have a better starting your first 4 in your lineup than what they have, but you have to be worried about their pitching because I don't think their pitching is as good in the rotation as it was last year. And honestly, I think their bullpen, it may be the same. It's average to me. They don't have a lot of big time arms out of that bullpen that scare you on a consistent basis. Okay, Garrett and Stanek throw hard. That's fine. But I don't I don't I just don't see it. I like him, but I don't see it, honestly. So personally, I like the Mets lineup, but I'm not completely sure if I really am in love with their bullpen and their starting rotation. So I'm not completely sure about it. But now let's switch over to the other side. Let's go on to the team that did lose Juan Soto, and that is the New York Yankees. Now, the Yankees, they've had a very active offseason. They clearly, from the moment that they stepped in and lost Juan Soto, they had a plan B in place before Juan Soto even came. Before they knew Soto was going to the Mets, they had a plan in place. And it was plan B, and it was plan B all the way. So the Yankees decided to go out and load up on all the pitching they could. So the first thing they did, they went out and got Devin Williams from the Brewers. Then they went out, they signed Paul Goldschmidt because they needed a first baseman. They needed a first baseman desperately. Then they went out, they got Cody Bellinger. The Yankees have had a very interesting offseason. So now, what sucks for the Yankees is that Luis Gil is probably going to miss up to 3 months. Their Rookie of the Year starting pitcher from last year. According to Aaron Boone, he's going to miss at least 3 months. So, unfortunately, this is why the Yankees kept Marcus Stroman around, because of something like this. So, as of right now, the Yankees rotation will most likely look like Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Max Fried, Marcus Stroman, and I'm looking for a name that I clearly am not. Oh, and Clark Schmidt, and even he right now is day to day with a back injury, but he's been facing hitters, so he'll be in good shape to be able to he'll be good for opening day. So still a very solid rotation. The top three is what amazes you. As long as Garrett Cole continues to be Garrett Cole, you're good. Carlos Rodon, I think he's in a better spot being a number 3 than he is a number 2. I think Rodon's a good starting pitcher. He has some tendencies. He can be wild at sometimes. He can give up the long ball sometimes. But I like Rodon better as the number 3 starter. Max Fried, this is coming from a guy who has watched Max Fried pitch his entire career in Atlanta. I'm a Phillies fan, and Max Fried has driven me nuts for at least the last 5 years, and a lot more. And it feels like more. But over the last 5 years, he is a ground ball pitcher. He doesn't throw the hardest. He gets his strikeouts, but he's a contact. He's a bat to ball pitcher. He keeps the ball on the ground, and the Yankees needed someone like that. They got their power arms. They need someone that he'll miss bats, but he needs to be able. You got to keep the ball on the ground, especially in Yankee Stadium. So that helps them a lot. And it gets him away from the Braves. So this makes me double happy because he's out of the National League and he's off the Atlanta Braves. But they do have their rotation is good. And if Luis Gil can come back and get back to somewhat full health and still pitch like he did last year, you're adding Clark Schmidt to your number 5 spot then. Stroman goes back into like a long man bullpen type role, I guess. And you're set. You're absolutely all set. And I personally think the Yankees came out with a very aggressive offseason. And yes, I understand that they didn't have. I still think they could have used another bat. They chose not to. I mean, they did add a couple bats, don't get me wrong. But I personally think they could have used. Another bat or two. I don't know what their situation is at third base. That's clearly a competition between Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Peraza. So that's clearly what they have going there. So now we wait and see. I mean, it looks like, unless they're going to put Jazz Chisholm back there. Now, they lost Gleyber Torres. I mean, so I don't know if they're going to move Jazz back to second. DJ LeMahieu, on the other hand, he's out right now with a calf injury. So I don't really know what's going to happen there. But the Yankees, I still think they're still going to be they're the Yankees. Come on. They're still going to be good. I mean, their starting rotation, I clearly put them over. If we're still talking, comparing the two New York teams, I still think the Mets have the best top four in their lineup, but the Yankees have the better rotation. Their plan B was perfect. They came out, they wanted to address their pitching. Max Fried helps you with that. You put that guy right behind Garrett Cole. He could easily start in game 2 of a postseason series. He can easily start game 1. Max Fried's an ace. You just need to understand how good he can be. So, Max Fried going out there on every 5th day behind Garrett Cole, and now you move, like I said, I thought Rodon was good last year for the Yankees. I don't think he's a number 2. I think he's a number 3. On a great team, he's a number 4. But I think on a really good team like the Yankees, he's a number 3. Clark Schmidt, maybe your 4 now, or Marcus Stroman's your 4 because he's a little more of a veteran. I'm not sure how they're going to rotate between Schmidt and Stroman. Like we know, Luis Gil would have been the 4, but he's going to be out for 3 months. So you're hoping when he gets back, you can kind of solidify your rotation. But that rotation is easily one of the best in the American League. You got high strikeout guys with Rodon and Cole. You've got a finesse guy with Fried. You have another ground ball guy in Stroman. You have Clark Schmidt, who's still young. It's a great rotation. Now, if we look in terms of their bullpen, they went out as well and they did some improvements there. They went out and got Devin Williams, who's easily one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. They acquired Fernando Cruz in a trade that ended up sending Jose Trevino, their other catcher, to the Reds. Cruz last year, I mean, he had an ERA over 4. It was 4.8. But in 66 innings, this guy had 109 strikeouts. So if the Yankees can just get him right and not maybe having him allow so many runs, I mean, he doesn't allow a lot of home runs. I mean, he allowed 9 last year, but allowing 36 runs in 66 innings, that's not great. I mean, that's going to easily make you have a high ERA, but a high strikeout guy out of your bullpen, you can't hate it. And then, of course, they still have guys out there like Ian Hamilton. He pitched 35 games out of their bullpen last year. He had an ERA of 3.8. I'm sure he'll have some type of a role out of their bullpen. They brought back Tim Hill, and he was a free agent. They brought him back. He pitched 35 games for the Yankees last year. ERA was at 2.05, so they were able to bring him back. Mark Leiter, they brought him over in a trade last year too. He pitched 21 games, didn't have a great ERA, but he'll probably get some type of a role out of that bullpen. So they have the arms. Jonathan Loaisiga, they brought back. He is still recovering from elbow surgery, so he's aiming for what it looks like a early June return. So it sounds like they'll be getting him back. And he was doing pretty solid for the Yankees before he got hurt. ERA was at 3.06 in 2023 before he suffered the elbow injury. So he's been a pretty solid relief pitcher for the Yankees. So they get him back. That'll put some stability back there. And of course, you bring in the big catalyst will be Devin Williams and Luke Weaver. Now, Luke Weaver came over last year, pitched 62 games for the Yankees out of their bullpen. ERA was at 2.89, and he was just a stud in the postseason for them. They needed a closer so badly. They were looking for a closer on the run, essentially, and he was good for when they needed him. They absolutely needed him, and he was sensational. So we're not sure if he'll be the full-on closer, but it's definitely going to be something to look for. Another guy in their bullpen is Jake Cousins. He pitched in 37 games out of the Yankees bullpen last year. ERA was at 2.37. So the Yankees have some options in their bullpen. I wouldn't say it's the strongest unit I've seen, but like I said, you have Weaver and Devin Williams in the back end. Tim Hill's your lefty. And then you're just trying to figure out the other spots between guys like Loaisiga Leiter, Cousins, Ian Hamilton, Fernando Cruz. Those you're trying to figure it all out from there. Now, the Yankees lineup, I think the Yankees did a very good job in terms of trying to replace a Juan Soto. Let's just be real. And everyone's going to say, oh, no, they didn't because they lost Juan Soto. Well, let me break you some news. There's only one Juan Soto, okay? You can't replace Juan Soto with Juan Soto. There's no chance of that. There's one Juan Soto, and he's a Met. So the Yankees had to go out and figure no one bat was going to fix this. They were going to have to go out and get multiple bats. And they did. I thought they would have added a third, but it turns out they only wanted to add two. So let's just look. I mean, they're going to have a second year. Austin Wells is going to be their full-time catcher. Apparently, they are extremely high on him. He had a solid first year as, I guess, almost the everyday catcher. I mean, he hit 13 homers. He drove in 55. He was solid. He's only 25 years old. Now, if you look at their infield, Jazz Chisholm's going to probably be their everyday second baseman. Had a solid run for the Yankees after being acquired at the deadline from the Marlins. Plays 46 games, hit 270, 11 homers, 23 ribbies, and he had a heck of a first week against the Phillies. He hit like 4 home runs in 2 days. Paul Goldschmidt's going to be their first baseman. I know Goldie had, somewhat of a down year last year. He hit 245, only hit 22 homers. Drove in 65. He played 154 games. Still had 33 doubles. I still think Goldschmidt, even at age 37, I still think he has good baseball left in him. The biggest concern when a player gets older is their dip against the fastball. Because if you're not able to catch up to the heater, you're going to struggle all season because that's just how it works. He didn't necessarily struggle too much against the fastball last year. More of his struggles came against breaking pitches, so he can still catch up to the heater. We can still clearly see that. So the hope is that Goldschmidt can still give you some productivity at age 37. I think he'll be fine. I don't think he'll play first base every day. They still have the young kid, Ben Rice, who they really like. He's going to be on the roster next year, I think. The kid's only 26, so he's going to have a role off their bench. So now the big bat for their outfield they got was Cody Bellinger. Now Bellinger's had a kind of a resurgence over his past couple years in Chicago. He's played 130 games exactly both years. 2 years ago, he hit 307, 26 home runs, drove in 97. Last year, hit 266, hit 18 home runs, drove in 78. He still had a very solid year last year, even though it wasn't what he did his first year in Chicago. But in my personal opinion, hitting in Yankee Stadium as a left-handed hitter will be just fine going over there. So he'll also probably play center field, that's a win in its own right because it gets Aaron Judge the heck out of there. I love Aaron Judge, one of my favorite players in baseball. The guy is a 7-footer in center field. It's like playing a freaking center of point guard. I love him, and to keep his longevity for his career, you put him back in right field now. So I love the Bellinger move. I like Goldie. I thought Christian Walker made a little more sense for the Yankees. But they chose to go the cheaper route with Goldie. I think they like Ben Rice a lot, so they didn't want to block him with a multi-year deal in terms of with Christian Walker like the Astros did. So I kind of understand why they did it. But so your outfield's kind of set. You got Judge in right. Belly's going to be in center. And left field, still an interesting one. It sounds like Jason Dominguez is going to be that guy. He is fully healthy now. He's coming back this year. He is going to most likely be the everyday left fielder. I like this kid a lot. He's one of the Yankees' higher touted young players. So I am very excited to see what he does for them. I think he's going to play their left field every day. I'm excited to see how he does. I think he is the big catalyst for this Yankees lineup because if he is as advertised, then you're going to have him, Judge. I think Bellinger's going to have a good year. I think Goldie's going to have a fine year too. One guy, though, for the Yankees that is going to really need to have a big third year, that would be the shortstop Anthony Volpe. I like Volpe a lot. He's still young. He's only 23. First year in New York, only hit 209, still hit 21 homers. Last year, a little bit better, 243, 12 homers, 60 RBIs. And now the big question with the Yankees this year is who is going to be their leadoff hitter? Because in the postseason, they moved Gleyber Torres there. Well, Gleyber's now in Detroit. So I guess you got to ask, where do they go in terms of their leadoff position? I've heard reports of Volpe being considered for that earlier in the offseason. So maybe they give it a shot in the spring. I'm not sure if he's been batting leadoff in the spring at all. I mean, I'm just look for their games today. I mean, no, like today, Austin Wells was leading off, unless that was switched up due to a lineup change. But the Yankees don't have the traditional. They don't even have anything close that replicates a leadoff hitter in my eyes. So that's the one thing about the Yankees lineup that concerns me is they don't have a true leadoff hitter. Not that many teams do, but now, in terms of the Yankees' concerns, like I said, you do have the Bengal Dominguez becoming the player you think he can be in left field. Giancarlo Stanton is still here. I mean, he had a great postseason last year. And, I mean, at age 35, I mean, he's still somewhat productive as your DH. Now, he has been nursing an elbow injury. So, there's a good chance he's probably going to miss the start of the season. Because he has injuries in both elbows, apparently. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for, is the fact that your DH has injuries in both elbows. So going to be a tough one without Stanton out there. Even if some Yankee fans don't like him, the guy is still a feared right-handed bat. If you make a mistake over the middle of the plate, he's going to make you pay. But now, in terms, if you look at third base is the only big noticeable hole for the Yankees. But it's going to be between Peraza, Cabrera. I don't know too much about either of them. It's going to come down to which one of them actually takes it away. Which one of them will take away that spot? And as of right now, I don't know. I mean, I guess they thought maybe LeMahieu could come back and do that. But again, LeMahieu's already out. He's nursing a calf injury. I think the DJ LeMahieu train is just set sailing for the Yankees. I think he's just too old. I don't think he'll ever really be able to stay healthy. So I'm not completely sure on what the deal is with DJ LeMahieu. But I think if we want to wrap this segment up now, I will say I think the Mets have won the battle for Juan Soto. I don't know if they necessarily won the war. I think both these teams are good. I don't know if either of them I would favor them in their leagues. Now, the Yankees have a more chance to be favored in the American League. I think the Yankees team is more well-rounded. I think they got a better starting rotation than the Mets. When healthy, now that's if Stanton's healthy and everything else works out, I think they have more of a potential to be a deeper lineup than the Mets. The Mets have a good first 4, maybe 5. I don't know 1 through 9. But the Mets, as of right now, I don't think have a better rotation than the Yankees. Bullpens, it may be a toss-up, actually. I will say, the Mets have Edwin Diaz, but outside of him, 8, 9, I take Weaver and Devin Williams. Strictly because I don't know who the setup man for the Mets is. Like we said, the Mets last year thrived off of hiding their starting rotation to hide their bullpen. That's what they did. They used their rotation to hide their bullpen insufficiency. And I'm hoping that it may bite them in the rear again because they really didn't address their bullpen. And they really didn't address much after bringing Juan Soto in. I mean, all right, they brought Mania back, yeah, but I feel like the Mets have more potential for weaknesses than the Yankees do. I think the Yankees, personally, may have the better team constructed right now than the Mets. Now, both teams are dealing with guys being banged up. We'll have to see how that looks on opening day. And personally, I may have to give the Yankees a slight advantage. The Mets got the best player. I think the Yankees still may have the better team currently constructed. It's not by much, but I think the Yankees right now still are a really good baseball team. I think with Goldschmidt and Bellinger, you kind of fill some of the void left from Soto. Now, you don't fill Juan Soto's shoes. There's only one Juan Soto. But to wrap up that first segment, I think the Yankees still have a little bit of a chance, and I think they're going to be just fine. I think the Mets are easily a contender, but they got to go up with the team we're going to be talking about next, and that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the reason I wanted to talk about the Dodgers is, holy crap. When you're talking about the Dodgers, holy pitching. And I know people like to get on the Dodgers. Oh, they're ruining the sport of baseball. They're doing this. They're doing that. Well, before I get into the Dodgers and their ridiculous expenses of pitching, for all the people that are complaining like, oh, well, they have deferred money in the deals and they're ruining baseball, you do realize that all the rules you're complaining the Dodgers of doing, every team in baseball has that same opportunity, right? Any team can defer money in a contract. And I'm sorry, if the Dodgers are ruining baseball, people are claiming the Dodgers are ruining baseball because not all the teams can afford all these free agents. But you don't think what the Mets did isn't going to ruin baseball a little bit? You think the Pittsburgh Pirates would wake up tomorrow and give Juan Soto $765 million? You think the Oakland A's would give the Juan Soto $765 million? No, they won't. So don't hate the player, hate the game. You can't get mad at the Dodgers just because they've been successful. But anyway, back to my point. I've had that conversation with too many people about the Dodgers. You can't hate greatness. Speaking of the Dodgers, their pitching staff. I'm not even just talking about their starting rotation. I'm talking about their pitching staff as a whole. And we could talk about their lineup. Okay, Will Smith, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Kike Hernandez, Max Muncy. Max Muncy's still a Dodger. Unbelievable. Michael Conforto signed there. Tommy Edman, who was the NLCS MVP. Teoscar Hernandez. Shohei Ohtani. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. We know what those guys give you. But if you look at this Dodgers pitching staff, on this pitching staff, Tyler Glasnow, who was great last year until he got hurt. Clayton Kershaw, even at his age. Michael Kopech, who came over at the trade deadline and in 24 games he had a 1.13 ERA when he got to the Dodgers. But, you've got guys like him. They signed Tanner Scott, who is easily the best left-handed relief pitcher in baseball right now. And they got him from their division rival, the Padres. Blake Snell, who won the Cy Young twice. Blake Tryon, still a great relief pitcher. Yamamoto, Kirby Yates. The Dodgers have easily one of the thickest pitching staff in baseball. You're going to get 6 to 7 innings from Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow. We don't forget about Roki Sasaki, who they got from Japan this year. They still have Kershaw, and we still know about what Shohei Ohtani's deal is, if he's not going to pitch this year or not. But then you go to the back end of the bullpen, and you got to deal with Kopech, Scott, Tryon, Kirby Yates. Kirby Yates last year had like a 1.13 ERA for the Rangers. These guys just loaded up on pitching. And for the people they're ruining baseball, did you not see how many injuries the LA Dodgers had? They won the World Series with Yamamoto and Jack Flaherty, and I guarantee you neither of them were 100% in that World Series. They were just trying to give you as many innings as they could. And then the bullpen had to come in and do its job. Their bullpen acquisitions were so loaded this past offseason that they had to get rid of some of the guys that were actually on the team last year. But it's still a ridiculously loaded bullpen. Daniel, what's up, buddy? How you doing? But the Dodgers are ridiculously loaded. And you can get mad at all you want, but that's just smart. That's smart baseball. Look at teams. Teams go into the postseason with two healthy starters, and they try to win it with two healthy starters in bullpen games. Like it's not a good look. And the Dodgers are playing ahead of the game. If they're healthy next year, they're going to go into a postseason. Sasaki will probably have 16 wins by then. Yamamoto, Blake Snell, and Glass now. If those guys get through the season, and maybe Kershaw, depending, because Kershaw's not getting any younger, but their bullpen is the more scarier one. Like I said, you get to that 6th, 7th, 8th inning, and we're going Tryon, Scott, Kopech, and Yates. Kirby, I don't know if Kirby Yates is going to have a 1.13 ERA again like he did with the Rangers. He's pretty up there in age, too, but the fact that these guys are just loaded with pitching, it's scary. Like, it is actually scary how loaded at pitching the Dodgers are. That may be the strength of their team. No, let me rephrase that. It clearly is the strength of their team. It's not if. It's clearly the strength of their team. So, people get mad all you want, but the Dodgers are just smarter than everybody else right now. They load up on pitching, and that's what wins in October. To win in October, you need arms. You need to have enough arms to win you something because you can get hit with an injury just like that. One injury can mean your whole season. So if you're the Dodgers, you're smarter than everybody else because you went out and got the arms you know you need to get back to the World Series. And they're the reigning champs. Why would the reigning champs not load up completely and go get more arms? Why wouldn't they? But their rotation is just... I'm excited to see the rotation, actually. Yamamoto and Sasaki, they're friends from being over in Japan. You're going to have Glass now. You're going to maybe Ohtani. We still have to wait and see if he is going to pitch this year. I still personally don't know if he's going to be able to keep the longevity of doing what he's doing, is doing both hitting and pitching. It's hard to do. I don't know if he's personally going to be able to keep that up, but the guy, just as a hitter, the guy is just ridiculous. As of right now, he is slowing down his pitching rehab, so maybe they also don't want to try to have him do both completely, but just as a hitter, the guy, the first year with the Dodgers, the guy goes off 38 doubles, 54 homers, 130 RBIs, 59 stolen bases, hits 310, has a 390 on base, has a 1,036 OPS. I also think that's why the Dodgers loaded up on pitching. I think that's why they went and got Sasaki and Blake Snell to have. And look, it's not just the guys they have that I've mentioned. They got a bunch of guys that are like last year. What I'm saying now is they have a bunch of guys that they supposedly developed into being into their rotation. Some of these guys may be in AAA. You got to remember that they still have who's still on their roster. Give me a sec here because. Oh, speaking of the Dodgers, hold on, we got breaking news. Hitting home breaking news. Per John Heyman, Dave Roberts and the Dodgers are progressing in talks for a possible record deal. So look at that. Some breaking news here on Hitting Home. Dave Roberts about to get a record extension with the Dodgers. Now, that'll help you. That'll happen when you win 2 World Series. But now, if you just... Here are some guys that I didn't even bring up yet. We haven't talked Dustin May, Bobby Miller. Gavin Stone is still hurt, so I don't think he's going to be a factor this year. But, before he got hurt last year, he was 11-5. So, he'll factor into next year's plans at some point. But these guys just have pitching up and down their whole roster. I don't know how these guys get better. The Dodgers are just ahead of the game. They know you need pitching, and they're going to give you pitching. They've got pitching up and down from starting rotation to their bullpen. Their bullpen is what scares me. Like I said, their bullpen is ridiculous. like I said, if you're playing the Dodgers and you got to go through Scott, Kopech, Yates, Tryon, I don't know how that's going to fare, especially when you're getting 6 or 7 innings from Snell and Yamamoto and Glass now. And then you'll have Kershaw probably be your 5. I'm pretty sure Sasaki will be in the rotation because, again, I don't see Ohtani pitching. I don't think it's for the longevity of his career a good idea. He's already a great hitter. We get it. You want to establish that you're one of the greatest players of all time. You have now had 2 Tommy John surgeries, but you're still one of the best hitters in baseball. Why risk that? You're still going to go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. You already kind of are. You had the ridiculous season last year. You won the World Series your first year in LA. You're part of a global iconic franchise. I don't think you're going to need much more to prove that. I get he may still want to pitch, but you got to think about your longevity of your career. So I think that's a bigger reason why the Dodgers made multiple starting pitcher moves this offseason, because I don't think they want Ohtani pitching. I know it'd be cool, but I still don't think it's realistic. But like I said, the Dodgers, they're loaded. You can hate them all you want, but they're just smarter than everybody else. So I guess that kind of ends our little segment about the Dodgers and their pitching. A little shorter segment, but so to wrap up this episode of Hitting Home, not much of these aren't going to be like your normal 609 Sports Talks episodes. We're not going to fill this with 2-hour shows and all that stuff. Not going to be like that. We're just going to keep it short, sweet, to the point, especially tonight since I'm riding solo, so just try to keep it a little short for you guys. But I do want to go through a couple of off-season winners and losers. So I would like to talk about some teams who I thought had good off-seasons, and then I would like to talk about some teams that did not have some great off-seasons. Then I also have a third category, and that is teams I think that are kind of stuck in the middle. So I guess we'll start with some winners. Obviously, the Juan Soto. Now, necessarily, these don't have to be players. Or just teams. They could be players. They could be teams. They could be certain positions. Who got the most money? There could be a lot of scenarios in this. So one of my first off-season winners, I want to say, I'm going to give one to the Boston Red Sox. Now, the Boston Red Sox already had a very good starting rotation last year. The Red Sox starting rotation actually kept them in a little bit of a hunt for a wild card spot for a while. I mean, if just looking at it, they had Brian Bayo, they had Cutter Crawford. They had a solid rotation last year. They had Tanner Hayek. They had a solid rotation last year. They really did. Now, how do you improve off of that? Well, you went out and you actually added 2 starting pitchers in the offseason. They went out and they added Walker Buehler, who had a very good postseason run for the Dodgers. He's starting to get healthy. This will be a second full year removed from Tommy John. That's usually how it goes. When they get to the second year, they kind of start getting back into a little bit of a groove. He is 30, but... And then, of course, they went out, they got the big name, they got Garrett Crochet from the White Sox. Crochet has been on the trade block, I feel like, for 2 years now. And he was it almost feels like getting Chris Sale. I mean, Crochet last year with the White Sox, 146 innings, 209 strikeouts, only 25 years old. So, now, to also be fair, the Red Sox also got Patrick Sandoval, but he is already on the 60-day IL, recovering from Tommy John from the Angels. So, it's a 2-year deal. We'll have to wait till next year to see him. But Crochet and Buehler, you add to that rotation already. It was already ridiculous to begin with, and it just got better. Now, their bullpen, I'm not sure what to make too much of their bullpen. I mean, Liam Hendricks is there, but he's having a really off start to the spring. They brought in Aroldis Chapman. I'm not really sure. I mean, that's fine. Chapman was solid last year with the Pirates. I mean, he was all right. He had a 3.80 ERA, still had 98 strikeouts in 61 innings. So the Red Sox bullpen is still a little bit of a question mark for me. Not sure who's going to be the closer. Not sure if it's strong enough. But like I said with the Mets earlier, how do you hide a bullpen? With a good rotation. And the Red Sox have a very good rotation, anchored by Garrett Crochet and boys down. With Walker Buehler, Brian Bayo, Cutter. They have a good rotation. And in terms of their lineup, they went out and they got Alex Bregman. I really like that move. I mean, he's going to probably play second base for them, it sounds like. They still have Tristan over at first. They have Devers at third. I guess Trevor Story is still their shortstop, so maybe you get a healthy season out of Trevor Story. I mean, he's been banged up. Ever since he got to Boston, he's been banged up. I mean, his high in games has been 94. And 2 years ago, he played 43, and last year he was limited to 26. So I guess if you're the Red Sox, you're just hoping you get him healthy. And the outfield, you have Jarren Duran, who's a very nice young player. They got guys that can play. They've definitely got a decent lineup still. Bregman, he has like an OPS at like 1,000. He's got an over 1,000 OPS at Fenway Park. So he is going to do nothing but help them. He's another right-handed hitter that they desperately need it. So I'll say the Red Sox are winners. I think getting Bregman is big, getting Crochet is big, getting Buehler really helps. Chapman will help their bullpen. I don't know how good their bullpen is as a whole. But I think the Red Sox are one of my winners. When you're able to walk out with the coveted trade market starting pitcher in Crochet, and you walk out with Alex Bregman, who's won a couple World Series over in Houston, I don't think you can be labeled anything but a winner. Another winner, I'll have to say, this is tough. These are tough. This offseason was weird. Juan Soto really dictated most of the market, but I mean, I'm trying to think of the teams that won. I mean, like I said, Juan Soto, clearly a winner. He got paid. Another winner I have, Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, we know the Diamondbacks, they made their Cinderella run to the World Series just 2 years ago, and they were right in the thick of it last year to get back to the postseason, but they missed it by a game. So what did they go do? They already had a good starting rotation. Zach Gallen, you'll have coming back. You'll have a healthy Merrill Kelly. You'll have, hold on, I'm still looking here. They got a ridiculous rotation. A healthy Eduardo Rodriguez. I mean, he missed most of the beginning of last season, so you have him back healthy. Merrill Kelly missed a lot of time. He'll be back healthy. You have Zach Gallen, like I said. You still have Jordan Montgomery, even though I don't think he has a long-term future in Arizona, especially after the way he performed last year for them. But then you go out and you get Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns coming off a year in Baltimore, 15-9, 194 innings, 180 strikeouts, a 2.9 ERA. So not only did you already have a really good rotation, now you have almost an elite rotation that can kind of keep you at the pace with the Dodgers and the Padres. The Padres have a good rotation. I mean, with Michael King, Dylan Cease, Yu Darvish, guys like that, they signed Nick Pivetta, and for some reason, I think the Padres are going to turn Nick Pivetta into a really good starter. He already started to redefine his career in Boston after he left Philadelphia. Go figure. But I just, for some reason, think the Padres are going to make Nick Pivetta a stud. And I hate that because I love Nick Pivetta with the Phillies and it just didn't work out. But in terms of their lineup, I mean, it's solid. They did lose Christian Walker. That's going to hurt a little bit. But they still have a solid lineup. I mean, if you just go down here, you look at their catchers, you still have Gabriel Moreno, who is still a really good young catcher, and I still feel like he is still just coming into his own. I mean, if you look at their infield, I mean, Ketel Marte is one of the best players in baseball we don't talk about. They got Josh Naylor from the Guardians. I still don't understand that trade from the Guardians. They still have Perdomo at shortstop. They just gave him a big extension a few weeks ago. They still have Suarez at third. So their infield, they got a lot of pop in their infield. Naylor's going to give you some pop. Suarez gives you pop. Ketel's got sneaky pop. I mean, Ketel, I believe he hit 30 home runs last year. He hit 36. So they got some pop in that infield. Outfield, they still got Lourdes Gurriel, who is still such an underrated freaking player. I mean, they got it. He was involved in one of the trades that they did a couple years ago, but last year he hit 280, 18 homers, 75 runs batted in. Still a very good player. Randall Grichuk they have still out in the outfield. Jake McCarthy is another outfielder they still have. But, of course, we know the up-and-coming superstar on the team is Corbin Carroll. Corbin last year did not have his greatest year. He only hit 230 after having a really good rookie year. But he's already off to a hot start in the spring. He's hitting 500 in the spring so far. So it's safe to say that Corbin Carroll is ready for Major League Baseball season to start since he's batting some MLB The Show on rookie statistics over against spring training pitching. So I'm going to put the Diamondbacks as another one of my winners. I really like what they did this offseason. I like the Josh Naylor addition. I think it's a solid move. Another winner I have is the Chicago Cubs. I thought the Cubs, not a lot of activity in their offseason, but you know what? The Cubs over the past couple of years, they've been stockpiling some good players. Like, I wouldn't say they were just missing out on some things. Like, they were getting good players. Like, they were getting Cody Bellinger. The Cubs were doing some little things. And now they finally get their big piece. They go and get Kyle Tucker from the Astros. Now, in terms of Kyle Tucker, you do have to extend him. So we still have to wait and see how that looks. But you go out and get Kyle Tucker. And it's gonna help you almost immediately. Now, again, granted, you do have to pay him still, but I mean, they have Javier Assad in their rotation. He probably will start the year off missing opening day, but they still have some decent starting pitching. They still have Shoto Imanaga. They still have, I'm just scrolling through, they brought Ryan Presley over from the Astros as well, so they got some more bullpen help. They still have Jameson Taillon, Justin Steele. They still got some solidness in their rotation. Miguel Amaya is going to be their catcher. He's still a young guy they really like at 25 years old. But infield, you're looking at, you still have Nico Horner at second. They brought Justin Turner over. You have Dansby Swanson still, Ian Happ, Kyle Tucker, P. Crow Armstrong. Maybe their starting center fielder because of his ability to play center field. They still have Suzuki. He'll probably be their fourth outfield type guy, but I like what the Cubs have done. I think the Cubs could be a sneaky team this year if they stay healthy. Another winner I have also is the San Francisco Giants. No, they didn't have the greatest offseason, but they finally did get some names to actually come over to their team. Missed out on Aaron Judge, missed out on Ohtani, missed out on all these guys over the years. But they did get Willy Adames. I think Willy Adames is going to help them and hopefully help them establish some type of relevancy to where they can have star players go there. I think Matt Chapman started helping that by signing a long-term extension with the team. But hopefully that starts to help them get back into that relevance point of being up there with the teams in their division. They signed Justin Verlander. I don't know what Justin Verlander has left in the tank at this point. So it's solid. I hope it works out for them, but it's kind of one of those low risk, high reward things. But it is what it is. But I think it was solid. But mostly give them a win because they finally got a guy like Adames to come over, help their team out, and we'll see what happens. Now, let's go with some losers I have. Some losers that I have. The first loser I have is anybody who is a Scott Boras client. Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso. The only guy that got paid outside that was right away, that was a Scott Boras guy that had any type of like a high leverage situation was Juan Soto. Outside of that, Scott Boras' clients, normally this is how it works. They sit out all the offseason. They're at the winter meetings. They don't like what they're getting offered. They don't like any of this. And then they're sitting there wondering, why am I not getting paid? That's because Scott Boras overvalues some of his clientele. And then they're sitting there in February, like Pete Alonso, like Alex Bregman, like Jordan Montgomery last year, and they're taking 2-year deals with opt-outs and having to reset their market. Now, if you're Jordan Montgomery, that didn't work out too well because now you're sitting there with an ERA over 6 and nobody wants to trade for you, and now you can't get out of your contract. Well, I mean, why would you? He's due $20-something million this year, and having an ERA over 6, I'm not going to deny that kind of money because no team's going to give me that now. So we'll have to wait and see. Did Alex Bregman overplay his hand? Maybe. Did Pete Alonso? We'll see. Pete Alonso's going to be playing the same game next year when he opts out of his deal again. But one of my losers is Scott Boras and his clients because Scott Boras normally just makes his guys sit out there and wait forever. But it is what it is. Another loser I have is the Cleveland Guardians, unfortunately. I like the Guardians. They're going to develop pitching like they always do. I did like the fact that they got rid of Josh Naylor and replaced him once again with a 1 year of Carlos Santana, who I feel is like 100 years old. Carlos Santana is 38 years old and is now entering his third stint with the damn Guardians. Started his career there from 2013 to 2017. Left for Philly in 2018. Went back to Cleveland in 2019 and 2020. Then he went to Kansas City for 2 years. Then he went to Seattle midway through 2022. He was with Pittsburgh and Milwaukee in 2023. He spent this entire last season in Minnesota, ultimately now to re-up with the Guardians for what feels like the 15th time. So I did not like that. They also traded Andres Gimenez. I don't like that either. I think the Guardians weakened their team. I'm sure Lane Thomas will probably get traded eventually soon. I mean, they added Paul Sewald to their bullpen. They added Luis Ortiz from the Pirates to their rotation. I just still don't know if the Guardians have enough now. You were literally in the ALCS last year and somehow got worse. But that's what you get when you have an ownership that's not willing to spend the fazools. Well, you gotta pony up some to be able to win in this league. So that's one of my losers, unfortunately. Another one of my losers is the Seattle Mariners. Mariners were a game away from the postseason last year, and they really didn't do nothing. Matter of fact, they actually got worse. I mean, I think Justin Turner just came out and said the other day, it's why he signed elsewhere. He said they really weren't trying to get back to the playoffs. Like, they were a game away last year, and they really haven't done anything to improve. Now, the rotation will still be good, but their offense is kind of like, I don't know where their offense is heading. So I'm going to give them a big L because I don't see where they got better. Another one of my losers, I think this is going to be my last loser, is I'm going to have to I have two more losers, is the Toronto Blue Jays. I know they had a solid offseason. Like, if you go through what they did do in the offseason, some of it's not bad. They got Jeff Hoffman from the Phillies. I'm still pissed off at that. And then if you go down through the rest of their moves, I mean, they did get Andres Gimenez from the Guardians. He's a platinum glover, but he's not much offensively. They got Anthony Santander. He's going to hit 230 and hit 38 home runs. But once again, they were in on Ohtani. They didn't get him. The Blue Jays are kind of going through what the San Francisco Giants went through, to where they cannot draw star players. They failed the fact that they could not get an extension done with Vladimir Guerrero, and now he's probably on his way out the door. So that's where I have a loss as well, because you couldn't lock up your best player. So I guess that's where the Blue Jays are at. They're kind of like, they get some solid players, but they don't get really good players like they've been trying to. And then my last team for losing, it's the St. Louis Cardinals. For the first time in a long time, the Cardinals are actually in a state of rebuild. And they had some guys that they could have got some decent returns for. They failed to trade guys like Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Ryan Hazley, their closer, Nolan Arenado. They had a chance to move off some of these guys and kind of hit that reset button that they've probably needed to hit for a couple years now, and they kind of failed to do it, just in my opinion. So for one, I'm going to have to give, unfortunately, the Cardinals a loss because they could have actually hit the reset button, and they kind of chose not to. And, okay, actually, I lied. I have one more loser, and that is the Baltimore Orioles. And that is because the Orioles, to me, did not add anything to keep up with the Red Sox or the Yankees. If I'm the Orioles, and I got this great young nucleus, I have Adley Rutschman, I have Gunnar Henderson, I have Ryan Mountcastle, I have I have Colton Cowser. I have this young nucleus, and all I do in the offseason was add Tyler O'Neill, who's a solid player. I add, who else did they add? If they added anybody, Gary Sanchez. I lose Corbin Burns, and I don't add any pitching help. The Orioles sat there and watched the Yankees add Max Fried, Devin Williams, Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt. The Red Sox, like I said, Aroldis Chapman, who, yes, he's not Aroldis Chapman of years before, but he's still a pretty damn good, hard-throwing left-handed relief pitcher. Garrett Crochet, Alex Bregman. And the Orioles kind of just added some odds and ends around their roster, and I don't know if their starting pitching is going to be able to hold up. It's already been banged up. I mean, Tyler Wells is going to start the year out with an elbow injury. Trevor Rogers right now is out with a kneecap injury. Grayson Rodriguez is hurt right now with a triceps injury. Okay, they signed Charlie Morton, who honestly may be reliable for them, but still. Dean Kramer, he's healthy right now, so that's solid. Zach Eflin pitched pretty solid for them actually last year. He's 5-2 when he got traded over there from Tampa. Another guy I missed in Philadelphia, but Kyle Bradish is out. They're going to miss time with an elbow injury. And now they are getting Felix Bautista back, so that should hopefully help out their bullpen a little bit. I mean, he did have a scoreless appearance against the Red Sox on March 3rd, so that should help them just a smidge. In the back end of their bullpen, you move Cano back to your setup role. Their bullpen may not be the biggest issue, but that starting rotation is a lot of concern. It's a lot of inconsistency and maybe some health issues there. So I have the Orioles as one of my losers. And I have three teams that I have four teams that I'm kind of on the fence about. The first team I am on the fence about is the Atlanta Braves. Now, look, they're still the damn Atlanta Braves. They've still got a ridiculous core of guys there. But you still have Ozzie Albies, Orlando Arcia, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. Acuna is still rehabbing the knee. They still have Michael Harris. They signed Brian De La Cruz, who I just know somehow is going to hit like 300 against the Phillies this year. And they also signed Jerkson Profar. So they still have Marcell Ozuna. I just don't know if the Braves have a lot of pitching. I mean, Strider's still going to be missing with the elbow. They lost Max Fried. Will you get another ridiculous year out of Chris Sale like you did last year at age 35? I don't know. Ronaldo Lopez, I'm sure he'll be fine. Joe Jimenez, I'm pretty sure he's going to miss the entire season. So I'm just not sure if the Braves have enough pitching. Now, knowing the Atlanta Braves, they're going to find like three Joe Schmoes off the street, and two of them are going to pitch in the bullpen and have sub-2 ERAs, and they're going to find some random guy on the street, and he'll win 16 games for them. That's just how the Braves are. It doesn't matter how good or bad you've been in your career, the Atlanta Braves will find a way to make you productive. But I kind of was shocked that the Braves didn't look for more pitching after knowing they're probably not going to have Spencer Strider for at least most of the first half of the season and how they lost Max Fried to the Yankees. I'm surprised the Braves didn't make a bigger effort to bring Fried back because he's been such a workhorse for them. So that's the first team I'm on the fence about. Another team I'm on the fence about is the Astros. I wouldn't say the Astros on paper are a bad team. But, I mean, if you look at their rotation, it's still solid. I mean, Hunter Brown was solid for them last year. They still have, Christian Javier should be hopefully back. He'll be back, it looks like, around the All-Star break. McCullers is hurt, so, okay, yeah. Framber Valdez is still there, but they got a lot of issues in that rotation with injuries. And then, I mean, Altuve, is he playing left? Is he playing second? I don't know. I like Isaac Paredes. I don't love him. Jeremy Payne is still a good, solid player. I do like the addition of Christian Walker. Great glove fielding first baseman. Those Crawford boxes will help him. He's going to hit 35 plus in that ballpark. Still got Yordan Alvarez. Not sure if they really have an in-house current replacement for Kyle Tucker still. I really thought they would have tried their better way to keep Tucker, but I don't know what the Astros are right now. I wouldn't say they're a team that needs to start looking down the road. I still think they could be at least at worst a wild card contender. Maybe still compete in the West, but I mean the West is weak. The Angels probably aren't going to be good. The A's are not going to be good still. The Mariners, I don't know what the Mariners are. It may still be the Texas battle between the Rangers and the Astros. I haven't talked about the Rangers much in this, and if at all in this episode. The Rangers had like a sneaky offseason. They honestly made some quiet, solid moves. Now, the Rangers' big thing is health. If they're healthy, they'll be fine. But, I mean, if you just look at it, if DeGrom's healthy, which I feel like we say that every year, Evaldi's back, John Gray, they still got a solid rotation. I'm still high on their rotation. They brought Kyle Higashioka over from the Padres to be their catcher. He'll help out Jonah Heim a little bit more, so I like their duo of catchers there. They brought Jake Berger over from the Marlins. I mean, he's going to do nothing but bring you some pop. He hit 30 home runs last year for the Marlins, so they brought him over. They have Josh June over at third. He's still going to give you a lot. I mean, he was banged up last year. He only played 46 games. Hopefully he's back healthy. Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, again, two guys, one healthy, one of the best 1-2 punches in the game. Adolis Garcia, though, it sounds like he's going to miss some time with an oblique injury. That's going to hurt them a little bit. But they brought over Jock Peterson. They made some solid moves. It's just that it's all health related with the Rangers. If they're not healthy, it's going to get ugly. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Another team I'm kind of stuck in the middle with is the Padres. I don't really know what the Padres were doing this offseason. I mean, this team was a win away from knocking the Dodgers out of the playoffs. And I'm just hearing they're trying to trade a rise. They were listening about Dylan Cease. But I'm like, you look at their roster. I mean, they've got Fernando Tatis still. Jackson Merrill, who I think is going to be nothing more than a superstar. Manny Machado. Jake Cronenworth. Luis Arraez. Xander Bogaerts. Now, their catchers, they do have Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado on their roster. I'm not sure how much that's really going to help them. But then if you look at their pitching, Robert Suarez is still a great closer. Nick Pivetta, they're going to have him in their rotation this year. Michael King, they're going to have him. They're going to have Yu Darvish, Dylan Cease. I mean, they still got a really good starting rotation. And their bullpen, I mean, Jason Adams is still in their bullpen, who they acquired last year from the deadline from Tampa. Now Joe Musgrove's probably going to miss the entire season because of Tommy John. He had the surgery in the postseason, so I don't really know if that's going to. It don't look like he's going to be able to pitch this year. So, but all I'm hearing all offseason from the Padres is like, oh well, they're fielding offers for Luis Arraez. Oh, they're fielding offers for Dylan Cease. And I'm like, you just got both these guys last year, and they had you one win away from knocking the Dodgers out of the playoffs. The Padres are the only team in the NL that I can confidently say are the team that can compete with the Dodgers. For some reason, they can just compete with them. I don't know if the Diamondbacks can do it. The Mets pitching still is concerning. I don't know really where to go with that. And the guys that they're acquiring, they're trying to flip the next year. Now, granted, they've done it in the past and it's worked, but like Juan Soto, they got him, they traded to the Yankees, they gave Michael King. Michael King's a top 2 starter in their rotation. So, Like I said, I do like their addition of Nick Pivetta. For some reason, I think the Padres are going to turn Nick Pivetta into a stud this year. For some reason, I just think it. I don't know why I think it. I just do. But I'm still not sure what the Padres are doing. I like their roster, but I ain't going to like if they're starting to sell off pieces for nothing when they're in a window trying to win. And that brings me to my last team I'm kind of in the middle about, and that is the Philadelphia Phillies, which, yes, if you can't tell, Bryce Harper in the background. Phillies have had the best stretch of baseball we've seen in this city in 4 years. 2022 went to the World Series. 2023 went to the NLCS, and of course won the NL East last year, and were in the postseason, and unfortunately got knocked out in the first round by the Mets. Phillies did not do much this offseason. They added Max Kepler to be their everyday left fielder. They added Jordan Romano and Joe Ross to the bullpen, and they brought in Jesus Luzardo for the rotation. Now, before I sound like the negative Nancy that people think I am, I like what the Phillies have done with their starting rotation. I like their starting rotation. I think it's one of the top 5 in baseball. It was already top 5 before the trade with the Marlins. Zach Wheeler, easily one of the best pitchers in baseball over the past 5 years. If you don't agree with that, then you don't watch baseball full time, and I don't have any time to talk about it. Aaron Nola, easily one of the top at least 12 to 15 pitchers in baseball. Christopher Sanchez, you're going to know more about Christopher Sanchez this year because he is just trending upward. Last year was so good, and now this year, he was rewarded with an in-season extension last year for a reason. I think he's going to have an even bigger year this year. Ranger Suarez, I like Ranger, but when he hits that 130 innings mark, it's over. That he runs out of gas. We saw it last year. And that's a big reason why the Phillies haven't re-signed him. Now, add Jesus Luzardo to that. Luzardo's a very good pitcher. Now, he had a back injury last year that I think he only pitched 12 games, but when he's healthy, so far in the spring, he's hitting 97. He's got a good changeup. You're adding Luzardo to what already was one of the best rotations in baseball, and now you've got a confident 5. Painter should be up here eventually at some point in the summer when he's ready to go. And the best thing about this to all my Phillies fans, we don't have to watch Taijuan Walker ever the freak again, because if I have to watch Taijuan Walker throw one pitch in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform again, I'm just going to assume the ball went 400 feet into the seat. But I like the rotation. Everything else, I don't know how you go 3 straight years with the same lineup that has failed you at a lower level every year. After Game 3 of the World Series that in 2022, the bats went cold the rest of the series. Games 6 and 7, the bats went cold against the Diamondbacks, and then last year they didn't do anything against the Mets. And they keep running with the same lineup, and it's getting older. Kyle Schwarber is now 32. JT Realmuto is now 34. Castellanos is now 33. Trey Turner is 31. Bryce Harper is 32. I have no issue with Alec Bowman, Bryson Stott. They're still your young cornerstone guys that you have developed over the years. They can stay. They brought Max Kepler in to be their everyday out left fielder. Marsh and Rojas will split time in center. Cool. Whatever. But it's the same lineup. It's going to have hollow expectations because you know what? If this team maxes up until August again like last year, and then they finished out the year 500, it's going to be the same hollow expectations because you're sitting there and they're like, well, they're going to go cold in the playoffs again. They haven't changed anything. So the rotation is, I'm excited to watch them pitch. I love Zach Wheeler. I love Aaron Nola. I love Jesus Luzardo. I love Christopher Sanchez. I still like Ranger Suarez. When he hits that innings limit, that he hits a wall and he is beat by it's time for September. But the lineup is still good. You're still going to mash. You're still going to hit home runs. Schwarber's still going to hit you 30 plus. Harper's going to hit you 30 plus. Castellanos is going to hit you at least 25 on a bad day. JT may hit you 18 if you're lucky. I don't know how much more good prime play from JT Realmuto we're going to get. It does sound like the Phillies are shaking some things up, though. it does sound like Trey Turner is going to be the leadoff hitter. From what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, it sounds like they haven't committed to the same lineup like last year, which is good. You can't keep going. The Phillies are literally turning into the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. So if you look at the Phillies, they have to switch it up. I thought that's what we brought Trey Turner here for. His speed and his ability to run the bases, his contacting, the ability to hit 300. That's what I thought a leadoff hitter was supposed to do. But then they still had Kyle Schwarber batting leadoff. So it sounds like that. Now, another thing you were hearing from Dave Dombrowski today is it doesn't sound like Trey Turner is going to be their shortstop for the foreseeable future. He's the shortstop right now. But I'll tell my Phillies fans, when Aiden Miller is ready, Aiden Miller is going to be ready. He is going to come and take that shortstop spot. Now, what do they do with Trey Turner? Maybe they move him to the outfield. I don't know. But it sounds like they are still confident that Aiden Miller will be their everyday shortstop. If not next year, the year after that. So it's a big make or break year for some of these guys with the Phillies. I've already heard they started extension talks with Kyle Schwarber and JT. I necessarily wouldn't extend anybody. I say you got to earn your next deal here. And if you don't do something this year, then why would I bring you back? I'm okay. Like the Phillies did this years ago. They had Chase Utley here too long. They had J-Roll here too long. They had Ryan Howard here too long. Those guys won something. They won you a world championship. These guys haven't won anything. And I love this. I love the team. They're fun to watch. They're a close group of guys. I go to at least 5 to 8 games a year. It's fun. But I like to finish the story and get the ending result that we want. That's a world championship. So we have to wait and see. Now, the one thing with the Phillies I also think they got weaker in was their bullpen. They lost Carlos Estevez. They lost Jeff Hoffman. So they're going into next year. Jose Alvarado, he's looked good so far in the spring. He's had, I think, a couple appearances. He's had 3 appearances. He's hitting over 100 in all of them. He's striking out multiple hitters. He looks good. Tanner Banks, he'll be in the bullpen once again as well. I don't know if he's pitched this spring yet. Oh, no, he's had a couple appearances too. Gave up a run in one and had a scoreless appearance in the other, so he's been okay. Orion Kirkering, he's somebody that they're really going to need to be big this year. I mean, he was good for them. He's been good for them since coming up, but they're going to need a big year out of him next year. Well, this year. So they're just going to need it. They brought Jordan Romano over from the Blue Jays. He missed a lot of time last year with an elbow injury. He's had a couple appearances so far in the spring, and he's also looked good. His velocity looks really good. So he's back up to hitting 97, 98. So he's looking to probably be the team's closer. Joe Ross, he was kind of like that tweener role with the Brewers last year. But out of the bullpen, his ERA, he had a 3.7 ERA, but he had like a 2.31 ERA when he was a relief pitcher. So, and then they have Jose Ruiz, who they brought on a minor league deal last year. He actually pitched really well for the Phillies last year for most of the season. And then you have Matt Strahm, who's going to probably be your first lefty out of the bullpen on most days because he's one of your most consistent ones. He has had a rough start to the spring. He's been beat up a few times, but it's spring training. I don't care. But, the bullpen, I feel like they're just banking on a little too much. I feel like they're banking on the health of Jordan Romano. They're banking on a bounce back from Jose Alvarado. They're banking for Orion Kirkering and Matt Strahm to be just as good. I feel like last year they just had such a lengthy unit that was solid and deep. It's still a decent bullpen. I don't think it's as good as of last year. Hoffman leaving really hurts them. And I thought if they lost Hoffman, they could have brought back Estevez to help out, but they chose not to. They're comfortable with what they have. If I had to guess right now, the closer role is Romano's to lose, and the setup man is probably a matchup thing. It'll probably be Alvarado in some situations. It'll be Strahm in some situations, and it'll probably be Kirkering in some situations. I still think they need another right-hander in that bullpen. I'm okay with the lefties. I like Alvarado. I like Strahm. I like Banks, but It's for right-handers. It's just Kerkering, Joe Ross, Romano. They probably need one more right-hander. I mean, they have Jose Ruiz, but I don't know how much I trust Jose Ruiz in high leverage situations. So, but I just feel like they're banking on too much to go right in that bullpen. I thought last year it was a deep unit. I just personally think they could have added maybe one more arm, and I would have been a little more comfortable. But like I said with the Phillies, I think to end the show, I'm just going to say this. They're probably going to win 85 to 90 games. They're going to hit a lot of home runs. They'll pitch good for a latter part of the season. There'll be a good pitching staff. The bullpen should be solid if it stays healthy. But again, with the way the last 3 years have ended, I don't have World Series expectations. Those went out the window in 2023. I still think they're a good team. I don't know who are they better. Are they better than the Dodgers? I don't think so. Now, outside of the Dodgers, the NL could be a crapshoot because you have the Phillies, you have the Padres, you have the Diamondbacks, you have the Braves, you have the Mets, you got the Cubs, you have the Brewers, who it doesn't matter how many guys. The reason the Brewers were not in this is because this is the Brewers' philosophy. The Milwaukee Brewers will get rid of a player and find a way to get just as good without them. The Brewers are they develop players and they're good. They don't win the World Series, but they're consistent. So the National League outside of the Dodgers is a crapshoot. The American League, that's up for grabs in terms of anybody because you got to wait and see how much better some of these teams got. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hitting Home. If you didn't get a chance to watch it live, please go back and rewatch it on Facebook and on YouTube. And of course, remember guys, 609 Sports Talk every Monday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. There will be another Hitting Home episode. I believe it will be the final week of March. It will be before the 27th when opening day starts. We will have a standings prediction show. So we'll have another Hitting Home episode in a couple of weeks. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay safe. Have a good rest of your week. And remember, NFL free agency frenzy this Monday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on 609 Sports Talk. We'll see you there. So, I'm Sam Nelson. Have a good night, everybody.